Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive look at the new Rogal Dorn battle tank that's just been announced by Games Workshop. Now don't worry if you missed the official announcement by GW and you're not sure where to find this information, I'm going to put a link down in the description below so you'll be able to go straight to the Warhammer community article and take a look at these pictures yourself. Now what I like to do with these deep dive videos is go over the model in minute detail and cover any rules that I happen to know for the model. Now in the case of the Rogal Dorn, there's a hell of a lot to go over because it's a brand new model, so there's loads of exciting new bits to talk about. Also, I happen to know all of the rules of the Rogal Dorn. In fact, I did them in a leaks video recently, but we'll be going over those again today. So hopefully, after you've watched today's video, you'll have a full and clear picture of this new guard tank. And I suppose the rules would be a good place to start with this unit, because I know a lot of people are going to be really excited. What can the Rogal Dorn do? Well, it's going to cost about 250 points base, and as standard, it's going to come with the twin battle cannon, the Castigator Gatling Cannon, and it's going to come with a heavy stubber. So any of the other extra weapons that we're going to be looking at today, like some of the extra stubbers and melters and sponsors and stuff like that, they come with additional points cost. It's going to be movement 10, weapon skill 6+, ballistic skill 4+. It's going to have a strength of 8, a toughness of 9, and a 2+ save with 17 wounds and leadership 7. It's going to have the turret weapon keyword for the either twin battle cannon or the oppressor cannon and coaxial autocannon. The turret weapon rule means that those weapons will be able to hit on +1 ballistic skill and will also be able to shoot out of combat, making this unit and many of the new guard vehicles much harder to tie down in combat. It explodes on a 6+ and it does D6 mortal wounds to all units within 6 inches. There are a whole host of extra weapon systems that you can buy for this beast, so you can give it 2 additional heavy stubbers for 5 points each, or 2 additional melter guns for 5 points each. You can buy a set of sponsons. These can either be heavy bolter sponsons for 10 points per weapon, so 20 points for the set, or you can give it a set of multi-melter sponsons for 20 points a weapon, so 40 points for the set. You can swap out the aforementioned Castigator Gatling Cannon for a Pulverizer Cannon, which is a small Demolisher Cannon type weapon, and you can swap out the Twin Battle Cannon for an Oppressor Cannon with Coaxial Autocannon. You can also purchase this thing Armored Tracks, which is a replacement for the old track guards that we currently have in 8th edition. Armored Tracks don't give you any benefits to movement, but what they do is give you +1 to your save if you're hit with a damage 1 weapon, making you even more resistant to small arms fire. So overall, from a rules point of view, the Rogal Dorn looks like an absolute beast of a tank. Now, it doesn't appear to be able to be taken in squadrons, so the max that you're going to be able to take in each guard army is going to be 3, unlike the Leman Russ, where you'll still be able to take them in squadrons. That's quite an important thing to note, because I know a lot of people have been concerned, will the Rogal Dorn replace Leman Russ? In my mind, I don't think it will, simply because I find the Leman Russ will be cheap, spammable armor, where the Rogal Dorn will be a much chunkier boy and it will fulfill a big tank role in your army. Overall, I really like the Rogal Dorn. I think it's a flexible unit that you can take at a slightly cheaper price point, just base with those standard starting weapons that we mentioned earlier, or you can start speccing it into a real DACA machine where it puts out 30 to 40 shots with all those stubbers and heavy bolters and the twin battle cannon and the Gatling cannon in the front. So I really like the Rogal Dorn. I think it's got a nice amount of flexibility and also should have a unique battlefield role on the tabletop. I think my preferred loadout will be the DACA Dorn, where you take the 3 heavy stubbers, the 2 heavy bolters, the Castigator Gatling Cannon in the front, and then probably go for the Oppressor Cannon with coaxial autocannon. That should get you between 35 and 36 shots every single turn from this vehicle. That is a lot of DACA, and that means it can clear out hordes really well with all those stubbers and heavy bolters and the Gatling Cannon and the autocannon. But when something big and beefy comes along, you've got that big Oppressor battle cannon to really just lay down the hurt. So I think that makes for a really flexible unit. But that covers all of the rules for the Rogal Dorn. Now let's take a look at the model itself and really immerse ourselves in the design of this tank. Now overall, the Rogal Dorn just feels like a really big chunky tank, and I like that. It feels like it's going to be an absolute beast and a bruiser of a vehicle, and when you slap one of these things down on the table, your opponent is going to notice it. I think it's much more imposing than the Lehman Russ, although you will only have 3 at most on the tabletop. In terms of the specific design features, we'll start with the top and work our way down. So first, let's just take a look at this turret assembly. It is a big turret, and I like that. For a long time, I felt like guard turrets have been too small for the vehicle that they're on, and I've always felt like you're looking at a one-man turret rather than a two-man turret. That's a real problem for me, just because historically one-man turrets were an absolute nightmare. There was something that were used sort of into war between World War One, World War Two, and were very quickly binned off because they weren't very good at all. And it's great to see that finally we've got a Lehman Russ that feels like, or a tank I should say, that feels like it's got a proper chunky turret, and that's good. And you can clearly see it has been designed to have 2 crew in it. So overall, the turret gets a huge plus from me. We can also see some interesting designs and little bits on the turret itself. So if you see here, we've got the new version of the Searchlight. We've seen this on a few other vehicles like the Sentinel as well. And we've also got what looks like the viewing periscope from a Baneblade on here, which is kind of interesting. There's definitely been some digital assets which have been reused in this vehicle, and I definitely feel like that has been reused from the Baneblade and that has been reused from the Sentinel. I also like the fine detail where you've got the heavy stubber boxes here for more ammo. You can see them again down here with the guy that's actually manning the weapon, which is just so cool. Very World War II vibes. The guy manning the 50 cal on the back of the Sherman tank really reminds me of that scene from Band of Brothers when the Shermans come over the hill in the Battle of the Bloody Gulch. Really, really cool. So big fan of the machine gun guy on the back. Big fan of the spare and spent shell casings and the extra ammo boxes. Overall, I think all these little details that have gone into the vehicle just look great. We've also got some potential electronic viewing here as well. So maybe this is a sort of a laser sight or some sort of electronic sight that the crew can use from safely within the vehicle. You've got a couple more here. Anyone who knows a bit more about military things, please let me know down in the comment section what you think these are. Maybe some sort of range finder or targeter, something like that. It's great to see we've got these little bits. They're actually missing from the current Russ turret. The current turret has lots of extra armor slapped on the side, but it doesn't have these extra little viewing sights and bits like that. So interesting to see that they're bringing those back. Also see we've got some spare tank track on the side there, which is very cool. And we've also got a spare wheel here as well. One thing that you'll notice, and we'll see it a little bit more later on, is that Games Workshop has definitely gone for more realistic vibe with this tank when it comes to its proportions and the extra gubbins that it comes with. You see, one of the things that I always found really frustrating when they took the vehicle upgrade sprue out of the Lehman Russ kit is it meant that a lot of Lehman Russes looked really basic and look, they've just come off the assembly line. There's no track guards or anything like that. There's no extra stowage or equipment, and so every Lehman Russ looked very, very clean. But if you actually go back and look at a lot of World War One, World War Two tanks, or even more modern tanks, you tend to find they've got all sorts of things stowed on the side of them, extra little bits of armor and equipment, maybe a rifle slung around on a little bit of netting. There's all sorts of extra bits of kit that tankers like to take with them and mount on their vehicles. So it's great to see that GW started bringing that back with the extra ammo box, the extra bit of track, the extra turret, the extra wheel down here. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, you can see with the track guide, you get all these extra bits of stowage. You've got ammo boxes, sandbags. You can see it really, really effectively on the top-down view. You've got tools. You've got everything. So overall, I really do like the fact that they seem to be adding in track guards to the kit, and it also seems to be that they're giving us all these extra little bits of equipment which have been missing from a lot of guard vehicles for a while, ever since they separated out the vehicle upgrade sprue. I think overall that's going to mean that no 2 Rogal Dorns will look the same if you as a modeler want to make sure that is the case. I mean, of course you could build them stripped down, none of this extra stuff on it, absolutely go for that straight off the assembly line vibe, absolutely that is something you can do. But if you want to go for a more veteran tank tank company looking unit, then you could have 3 of these Rogal Dorns, and each one of them could have different bits of storage on them, different bits of extra equipment. And overall, I think that would look really, really cool. So it's a big thumbs up from me for GW there, because not only have they added the extra bits in, but they haven't made them a separate sprue. They're going to be coming with the kit, which just makes it really, really good. A couple of other small bits to note. We can see we've got a new kind of aerial here. We've not had this kind of aerial on tanks before. Looks similar to the new Sentinel one and the new Voxcaster kit. So we're not going for the big round Voxcaster rings anymore. We've got these oval ones instead. We can also see a look at the uniform here. Now this actually looks similar to the heavy weapon team uniform and the field ordnance battery uniform. You can see we haven't got the big shoulder pads, but we've still got things like the knee pads and the elbow pads and stuff like that. Also, interestingly, the boots on these guys don't seem to have the gaiters that the other new Cadian troops have. So that's kind of interesting. So we're getting quite a bit of variety in the uniform types that we're seeing across the different infantry. Also see that this guy has got sergeant stripes on his arm here, and he's got a badge on his other arm here. Again, feels very much like some arms or assets have been reused from the field ordnance battery guys over onto the Rogal Dorn crew. Also see that we've got a tank hat here with a padded helmet with some goggles on it. We've got a field cap up here, and then we've got this chap down here who seems to also have a padded tank hat as well with goggles, but has a slightly different sort of angle to it. Also, there's another hat down here. You can see this guy's got a more of a solid helmet rather than a padded helmet, and also we've got a bare-headed guy there as well. So loads of different head designs, and that's great because that means more opportunity for head swaps. If you get a few of these Rogal Dorns and a few infantry box sets, you could really start mixing and matching the head swaps between them, and that's going to look really, really cool. Now, another interesting point to note about the crew, just while we're talking about them, we've got our first look at the back of the Cadian armor here. Now, until this point, we hadn't seen what the back of the flak armor was going to look like, and it is a significant difference. On the old Cadian armor, you had a little nubbin that went across there, and that's where you clipped your Vox backs on and your backpacks and stuff like that onto the back of your models. But now that little horizontal nubbin seems to have gone, and we've got more of a portrait one, and it seems to be a lot bigger and a lot more pronounced. This does make me curious about the Cadian shock troops infantry. Will they also have these ridges on the back, and then you can choose to put the backpacks on them, or will the models come with the backpacks molded it straight onto the back of the chest piece? It's going to be interesting to see how that works, but it's just curious that they have changed up the armor design. I know a lot of people used to just scrape the little nubbin off and just have a smooth armor back, but GW hasn't gone for that vibe. They've put an even bigger pronounced bit of armor ridge on the back there. Let me know what you think about that down in the comment section. I am surprised by it, and it makes me think that the backpacks might be optional in the infantry kit, but we won't know until we get a proper look at those later on. A couple of other small design choices about the turret. If you take a look at the turret hatch here, and you can get a great view of it from this top-down view, you can see that this is a new kind of inner turret hatch as well. Just a small detail, but just interesting to know. Another small thing to notice as well is that you can see there is a pintle mount here for a heavy stubber or stormbolter-like weapon there. Now, I don't believe the Rogal Dorn can take a stormbolter as an option, but if you're like me and you're not a big fan of the nipple guns sticking out the front of the Rogal Dorn, my, isn't it cold in here today? Then if you're like me, what you'll probably want to do is just not bother with the nipple guns and instead put your heavy stubbers mounted on your turret rings here and here. I think that would look really effective, and if you can just imagine it, it'd be so cool to have like a heavy stubber pointing out the front here, a heavy stubber pointing out to the left, a heavy stubber pointing out to the right. That would make it look like a proper battle fortress with all of these guns just sticking out, covering every angle of the vehicle. So that's how I'm intending to run my Rogal Dorn. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Do you like the nipple guns, or are you going to be mounting them as pintle weapons? So that is all the details on the turret. Now let's take a look at the main body, the main chassis of the Rogal Dorn. Now, one thing I do want to mention is it's a lot taller than I was expecting. When we did that sneak peek video at the Rogal Dorn, it was the ruined version, it looked a lot lower down. It looked very much like, more like a World War I tank with a big turret put on top of it. This is the total opposite of that. It is much more, it reminds me of like an M3 Lee or like a Sherman, something like that. A much bigger front and a much taller front than I was expecting, especially when we saw some of those people who had managed to sort of draw it out or scan it out from that sort of background picture we saw on the Rogal Dorn sneak preview. I thought it was going to be a much lower down vehicle, but as it turns out, it's going to be quite a tall boy. Not sure how I feel about that. It would have been cool to see a more low down vehicle, but as it is, I'm not against it. It definitely makes it look big and chunky. Overall, when you look at the tracks and you look at the body and you look at the turret, the word that comes to mind is square. Now, the Leman Russ and many of the other guard vehicles are much more rectangular. They're longer than they are wide, than they are tall. But the Rogal Dorn feels very square to me. It's very tall, it's very wide, and it's very long. It feels a lot more blocky, a lot more bricky. Obviously, there are some smooth angles to it, but I mean in terms of its overall shape, it looks like a square to me rather than a rectangle. Now, taking a look at some of the designs here, we've got a big bit of armor plate stuck on the front there. We've got some towing hooks as well. And you can see here, this is where the main hull weapon is going to go. Now, that's either going to be the pulverizer cannon, which is a miniature demolisher cannon essentially, or it is the castigator Gatling cannon. Now, you can see both of those different options there and there. Now, I really like the fact that this weapon is recessed into the hull. If you go and take a look at the current Leman Russ, the weapon that's on the front really, really sticks out. And if you actually build your Leman Russ with a battle cannon in the turret and a whole las cannon in the front, then you tend to find that the las cannon actually sticks out just as far as the battle cannon, and it makes it look a little bit strange. So it's great to see that we have got a whole recessed weapon here instead. I think it makes the turret look a lot more imposing and feels like it sticks out further from the model. We've also got a couple of headlights here. Now, if you don't take the stubbers, you can put a couple of extra lights down here as well. And you've also got the main driver's viewing slit here and an extra bit of armor here. What's interesting about this extra bit of armor is I thought when I first saw it, it was something that would slide down and cover the whole of the weapon, and it would be a bit like a battleship when it's putting its cannons out the side of an ye olde battleship, and they'd lift the hatch up and the cannon would slide out. But when you look at it, it's not actually big enough to do that at all. I'm not even sure why it's got hinges. It doesn't seem to have any real mobility. So I mean, I'm not against the extra armor plate, but I think they probably could have gone with a slightly different design choice there. Overall, the front of the tank looks very, very heavily armored. The one slight thing interesting thing they've gone for is they've gone for riveted construction again. Now, a lot of people will tell you that riveted armor is terrible. There's a reason why we don't have riveted armor anymore. And we didn't have it for most of World War II either. So it's interesting that they're continuing with riveted armor. I mean, I know it's a classic guard look and it stops it from looking too smooth and alien and modern. You know, don't want it looking too towel-like or anything like that. But it is interesting that they have continued to go with riveted armor. Now, working our way along the side and down the back here, you can see that we have got another viewing slit here. This bit very much reminds me of sort of the side of a Chimera or Leman Russ. It's got that sort of shape where it comes up and then across and then up again. So this feels a little bit similar to sort of the Leman Russ, but with an extra viewing port on the side there. If we scroll down a little bit, we can get a really good look at the back view. Oh, we can see there's another viewing port here. Interesting thing just to note, you've got the viewing port. Oh, they are recessed on both sides. Yeah, so it's recessed there back as well. And it's recessed there back as well. So if we move down a little bit here, we get a proper good look at the back. Now, interesting, there's not so much storage or anything piled on the back here, but we have got some vents for the engine here and here. I just hope this guy at the top here doesn't get badly cooked. It looks like a lot of hot air is going to be blowing up his way, although the vents do seem angled somewhat, so it should come out at a slightly different angle and shouldn't cook the rear gunner. We've also got, interestingly, some exhausts. Now, these exhausts are very different to the current Leman Russ exhaust. They actually point down, and the exhausts come out of the bottom there. That's actually sensible. That's how a lot of exhausts work on sort of modern day cars and stuff like that, so that makes sense. But what I would just point out to you guys, and let me know what you think, these feel like Sentinel exhausts, new Sentinel exhausts, and they've been turned upside down and stuck on the back of the Rogal Dorn. This feels to be like a very obvious digital asset being reused. Of course, they've flipped the Eagles the right way around, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, work smart, not hard, I guess. It's good to have the consistent exhaust types across the models, ties them all together, but it just seems so obvious that it is the new Sentinel bit turned upside down, stuck on the back of the Rogal Dorn. Not sure how I feel about it. Let me know what you guys think. Then also got a couple of barrels on the back here as well. Now, what's interesting is the Leman Russ traditionally came with one barrel, and the Baneblade came with 4 barrels on the back. So the Rogal Dorn coming with 2, I think some sort of message being sent by GW that this thing is somewhere between a Leman Russ and a Baneblade. Obviously, we've seen the stats and we know that that backs it up, but just from a sort of design point of view, when you're sort of looking at this model, you're mentally or subconsciously processing what it does, and your opponent's doing that as well. I think the overall size is obviously going to be a big factor, but also having these little details where, like, okay, it's got 2 barrels, it's got 4 exhausts, you know, the Leman Russ has only got 1 barrel, it's only got 2 exhausts. I think all those sort of little bits are definitely going to lean into it psychologically when you're looking at this vehicle, and you're going to be like, yes, this is a bigger tank than my Leman Russ, but it ain't no Baneblade. Now, moving on to the tracks and some other final details. Firstly, I really like how wide the tracks are on the Rogal Dorn. I think if they'd been any narrower, the tank would have looked quite silly. So it's great to see we've got some big, proper, fat tracks riding around on this vehicle. If we scroll up a little bit, we can see as well there's some extra details that you can add to the tracks if you want to. So firstly, you don't have to put the track guards on here. And secondly, you can either have the wheels exposed, or if you scroll down here, you can see there is actually some side skirts that you can put on the side as well, which is pretty cool. Now, interestingly, these side skirts do look like they've been reused from the Baneblade, so maybe another digital asset that's been reused. I'm not against them reusing digital assets at all. Now, let me know what you think. Are you a skirt or no skirt kind of guy? Are you an armored tracks or no armored tracks kind of guy? For me personally, I think I'm probably going to be a armor tracks and side skirts. I really like my vehicles to look as tanky as possible, although maybe for my Steel Legion I'll go for a more stripped down version, because my Steel Legion are meant to be a bit more of a rapid reaction force. I think overall it's a cool design. It means that you can tailor the Rogal Dorn to look like however you want to fit in with your army. If you've got a more grinding, driving forward, sort of Deathcore Krieg style army, you'll probably want to go for the fully armored version. If you've got Talan Desert Raiders or something like the Armageddon Steel Legion, you'll probably want to go for a more stripped down look. Just some other extra details here. We've got the smoke launchers, the new design here. We saw this on the Sentinel as well. Heavy bolster looks like a fairly standard design, although obviously the sponsor looks a little bit bigger there. We've also got these holes on the side of the vehicle. There was some speculation that these might be firing slots. I highly doubt it. You find these on all over the Chimeras, on the bottom, and the Hellhounds and stuff like that. I think they're just sort of holes for water and mud and bits to come out of there, or maybe exhaust ports or something like that. But I don't think it's going to have a sort of a firing port capacity. And then also, small extra detail to note, this is actually going back to the turret for a second. You can see that if you take the twin battle cannon, you've got a rather small armor plate. But if you scroll down and look at the oppressor battle cannon with coax autocannon, you can see it's got a much bigger armor plate with a winged skull on it. Now, I know some of you are going to be wondering about the actual size of this beast, but GW did provide us with a cool promotional picture here of some Rogal Dorns advancing down the road against some Chaos Space Marines. So you can see it is a pretty big tank. It looms over the new Guardsman. Like, it's taller than 2 of these upright Cadians on top of each other. So it's a tall tank. You also can see that it's the new Sentinel looks actually much bigger as well. When you put it next to the Rogal Dorn, it actually looks pretty big. And you can see back here there is a Chimera that looks obviously it is in the distance, but it still looks rather small in comparison to the Rogal Dorns. I do like that GW has put the stripped down Rogal Dorn next to the armored Rogal Dorn, so you can get an idea of which one you want to build. This one really reminds me, in fact they both remind me a lot of like a Matilda tank or an M26 Pershing. They definitely have that later World War II tank vibe rather than sort of an earlier interwar tank vibe that a lot of the guard vehicles can give off. There was also this helpful picture that was posted on the Warhammer Astra Militarum Reddit, so go and check that out if you haven't seen it already. It's a pretty good community, and you can see here that the Rogal Dorn does look like an absolute beast in comparison to the size of the Leman Russ. Now, I'm not sure the Rogal Dorn will be this big. Definitely feels like the Leman Russ looks a little bit scaled down, but you can just see it will give you an idea, especially if you look at the size of the sponsons on each tank. It just feels like this one's a little bit, you know, zoomed out. But definitely get an idea that the Rogal Dorn is going to be much, much bigger than the current Leman Russ kit. But that's everything on the Rogal Dorn for today. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you like the Rogal Dorn? Do you not like it? I mean, I did hear someone make a brilliant comment, which is, the worst bit about the Rogal Dorn is the name. Everything else is great. And I think that is a pretty good... I think that's a pretty good summary of it. It is strange that it is called the Rogal Dorn. For me personally, I'd give it an 8 out of 10 with the it losing 1 point for the name and losing 1 point for the fact that these track guards don't go all the way over the top. Maybe half a point for that, and also losing half a point for the nipple guns as well. I'd rather that they just put those as pintle mounts up here. Would have been cool if they're giving them pintle mounts and giving them all the turret weapon keyword. That would have been pretty cool. So yeah, overall, I really like it. I love that they've gone for the old 90s dark woodland camo scheme on them as well. I think GW really smashed it out of the park with the model, with the presentation, and overall I'm a big fan of it. Now, if you've enjoyed today's video, then please consider giving it a like, and if you want to make sure you never miss an episode and see more deep dives, then smash that subscribe button. If you've really enjoyed today's video, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. It's thanks to the channel members and patrons I'm able to do Mordy and Glory full time, and one of the big perks you get for being a supporter is access to the Mordy and Glory Discord, which is a really active and friendly community. In fact, we've got 500 active members in there at the moment, and we're constantly chatting and discussing tactics or memes or even painting tips and competitions. In fact, there's actually a Mordy and Glory painting event going on at the moment where we're slaying the grey and helping to clear the backlog before the new guard models drop. Now, don't worry, we're also going to be running another painting event when the new guard models come, so there's plenty of opportunity for you to get involved and meet new people. So if that sounds like fun, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. And I just want to take a moment now to say a big thank you and a shout out to the latest channel members and Patreon. So a big thank you to Artorius Rex, Bogan's Run, Luke Duke, Gmando115, Pierre Maxons, Squatticus, Interrogator Chaplain, Joshua Lanigan, Crisis, Tiki Wiki, Panzer Brandy, Nate Zhao, and Zanst. Thank you guys for becoming channel members. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to say a thank you to the latest Patreons, so Big07 to James Hughes, Stephen Paish, Matty B, Sean Mulligan, Bonbonvert, Chris, and Nod Goblin Nico. Thank you guys for your ongoing Patreon support. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people that have truly gone above and beyond the Call of Duty when it comes to supporting the channel. So a massive thank you to Bonbonvert, Navy Veteran, Philip French, Ross Miller, Tequal, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Swordfish Trombone, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and of course, August Varney. Thank you guys for your very generous support. It really makes a huge difference. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.